I wanted to give you a genuine insight as to what it's like to have an apex predator in South Africa as your hunting partner. So I've included all the crazy things that happen, which, as you can see from this photo, it's pretty crazy. They're specialist primate hunters. And it kind of tickles that part of your hindbrain to have something like this as your partner that sees primates as food. All right, so what got me interested in crowned eagles initially was this skull. It's a 2.8 million year old skull called the Tom Child. It was found in South Africa, and it's one of our earliest hominid ancestors. So, like this, let's get my microphone. So this is, okay, sorry. Yeah, that's technical difficulties. But yeah, so this is one of our earliest hominid ancestors, and what's really interesting about this skull is it was killed by the ancestor of a crowned eagle. So it's got 4 talon marks in it, just in the places where you would imagine they would be if if a big eagle grabbed onto the skull of a small primate. So I liked this notion that not only have eagles been a part of our history throughout Roman Empire and thousands of years ago wherever falconry started, but literally millions of years ago when we had to watch out for them as things that would predate on us. So here you can see these are the talon holes. They've also compared primate skulls and crowned eagle nests and the soft scrape marks in the eye sockets to this skull, which are identical. So yes, crowned eagles potentially influenced our own evolution. But today, the primary diet of crowned eagles are vervet monkeys. And this here is a vervet monkey skull. See, very similar to the Tom Child skull. And this is a vervet monkey. So they're big forest, there we go, big forest eagles. They call them leopards of the sky. So I was curious about whether or not you could actually hunt with them. And I had this notion that maybe it would be like squirrel hawking on steroids to try to pursue monkeys. And I heard stories about this guy named Andre Grunewald in Zimbabwe. And these are another Falconers photos that visited him, but he had rigged up a setup. This is a giant hood in the back of his pickup that he could pull a lever in the front and it would swing open the door and his crown could fly out and immediately go after a troop of vervet monkeys. Because obviously vervets are very intelligent and they pick up on patterns quickly, and you can't exactly just walk around in the forest and expect to get a slip on one. You need some kind of element of surprise. So he flew her for more than 25 years, and you can see this is a little vervet that she had caught that a friend is taking out of the vicinity. But they do go for small ones, that's their preference, and this would be a very young one. So I was intrigued. Okay, what is falconry like in South Africa? There's about 100 falconers, and maybe a dozen, 15 in Zimbabwe. With the political strife, it's not too conducive to falconry. But what's fascinating is you can fly any raptor, and there's 27 different raptor species. And for the most part, falconers there concentrate on black spars and peregrines and very typical birds that emulate European falconry. So there's not a lot of experimentation going on. And it's a very strict self-policing permit system. They have tiers like we do. They call them A, B, and C grade, like apprentice, general, master. But falconry really only got rooted there around World War II. But I would see pictures like this and think, wow, like what could that possibly be like? So crowned eagles in southern Africa are mostly found in the Durban area, which you can see, here's Durban. It's a coastal town, very lush. And they go up a little bit into here, but this is all desert, and you won't find crowned eagles here. So they're in this little island, and then you'll find them across equatorial Africa. But what's cool about Durban, and Jeff Fincher, who is our keynote speaker tomorrow and is in the audience, has taken most of these photos. They're really urban. They're like the Durban version of a Cooper's hawk. This photo was taken from someone's patio in their backyard that we were standing in. They have a pair of crowned eagles nesting there. So they're highly tolerant of urbanization. The vervets are as well. So there's vervets all across town, so they still predate on them. Also a lot of Hadida ibises and rock hyrax. But what this also means is that there's a lot of potential for human-wildlife conflict. There's some predation, as you might expect, on cats and dogs, and electrocutions, and just being in that close proximity with humanity. A lot of rehab birds come in. But there's not a lot of people that have the desire to fly them. So I said, hey, what if I came out there for a season? Would you let me fly a crowned eagle, a rehab crowned eagle, as a falconer, and with the goal of releasing it? And they said, sure. So they told me I could fly this bird, which came in, and he was shot in the crop with an air gun and had a broken wing and a healed broken leg. And this was him in rehab. So he took about a year in an aviary to heal all that, which they ended up just leaving the pellet in his crop. And so this is a year and a half old with all this white plumage. Trouble is, sat in an aviary for another year, so he's 2.5, and he's lost this very important window to gain fitness and hunting experience. And if you just kicked him out the door, he surely would have starved. So this was him when I got him, slightly more mature plumage. So crowned eagles, their feet are bigger and stronger than golden eagles by a fair margin, but they weigh on average 2 pounds less than a typical male or female golden. So a typical male crowned weighs about 5 pounds, it's flyweight. Typical female, 7.5. But you wouldn't know that to look at them. So I rented this, the only thing I could afford that seemed like a hawking vehicle. It's these cool little truck things with my giant hood in the back. And so I went outside, way far from Durban. I didn't want to hunt in the jungle. It seemed too difficult. So I sought out a mentor who owned a farm. And this was his landscape. This is in central southern Africa. So it's Karoo Desert, right on the edge of the Kalahari Desert. Camel thorn trees are common, and termites there form the base of the ecosystem. So everywhere you go, you see these termite mounds, like right here. But there's a lot of game and nobody to bother you. So this was Stephen. This is my mentor, and he flew a female. This was an imprint female that came out of the nest and somebody raised and tried to mess with it, and it came into rehab as this misprint, couldn't be released. So he got her. She was a mess when he got her, and through exposing her to lots of game and hunting, she became quite a good imprint. So his favorite thing, I'll show you the 2 types of hawking I saw with him when I went to investigate crowned eagles and what I could do with mine there. So he liked to hunt, this is a steenbok antelope. It's one of the smallest antelope in southern Africa. It's frequently predated on by martial eagles and cheetahs. So it's incredibly adapted to avoid eagles. It has all the maneuvers of a hare in an antelope form, and it's incredibly fast because cheetahs, it can outrun a cheetah. So it's this amazing creature in a tiny package. So there's 2 ways to hunt them. You can walk the field and flush them. The trouble there is you'll put in several hours for maybe 2 or 3 flushes. I mean, they're not very dense across the landscape. Or the more practical way is to do it from the back of the vehicle, where you can cover a lot of ground. And often, so that's Jeff there, that you'll find them sitting like this during the day. And they're so savvy, so you can see with their ears and their speed, you might get more slips that way, but you certainly don't get much of an advantage. So this is flipping her on a steenbok that we saw. And a few cool action shots here, all taken by Jeff. So you can see one here. Pursuing them.
What are the daily temperatures out there?
It's pretty hot, very similar to here.
How much do they weigh?
Well, 25 pounds or so, 20 to 30 pounds would be my guess. So this one, when the eagle came in, pulled a hare move, jackrabbit move, and did a 180 going back the other way. And crowned eagles have a really tight turning radius, especially compared to a golden eagle. But she just couldn't quite complete the turn to catch it. So it got away, and then this Eurasian kestrel, actually rock kestrel, sorry, got all indignant and came in, and she was all pissed off. And so this is her a few slips later when she was successful. You can see, I mean, their feet do pretty insane damage. So here, this was helping open it up a bit for her to have a place to eat. But even a creature like this, once she gets her feet on it, it's pretty much game over. Same bird. Yeah, they're very, very good at that dragon pose. So you can also see it like this photo, because I mean, look how big her halux talon is. It's bigger than a golden eagle's talons. And this guy, Stephen, he had a really thick eagle glove, and then he had a crazy number of layers on top of it. And I thought, like, come on, man. It's like golden eagle, I don't need that many layers of leather. No, he was 100% right. You can even put a few more on top of there. So this was her trade-off piece after catching that steenbok. So vervet monkeys. Whew, okay. So they're a lot in the jungle. But because of human settlements, they've spread far outside their natural habitat. So they like to eat a lot of garbage, and they'll go into agricultural areas, and they're a pest for farmers. So Stephen was inspired to get a crowned eagle so he could do sort of monkey abatement around his farm and help save his soybeans and his peanuts from monkeys. But what you have to do is, the troop moves around quite a lot, and you have to sort of be ready at any moment for when the troop happens to be out in the open feeding on peanuts or soybeans or whatever, and then slip your eagle as fast as possible. I mean, you've got like no time before they get suspicious and then head to the tree line. And if they make it to the trees, it's pretty much game over. They'll just disappear and slink back, and they'll be gone. If you had an island of trees, it might be different. But there was still some forest that would edge the agricultural areas and where we were flying. So this is an example of, found some monkeys feeding out in the open, momentarily distracted. He had her ready, and bang. And as crazy as that looks, and this is actually the first picture, and this would be the second one. It was all over within seconds. I mean,
they had big canines. You saw their skull.
They do. And actually, a big worry with monkeys when they catch them is that with their hands, they'll pull out primary feathers. This is like a golden eagle and a jackrabbit, a crowned eagle and a vervet are completely evolved to both hunt and evade one another. So she was successful here. So Jeff wanted a trophy shot, as you would, but do you hold it by the legs or do you hold it by the legs? So try both. I know this seems a little crazy. It's like I was saying, it's very natural, and they're a pest outside their normal range, and vast majority get away, of course. So Stephen with his imprint. She would do a lot of typical imprint behaviors and posturing, but was generally a very nice eagle for him. So the other kind of hawking he would do is at night for this creature here called a spring hare. They're super cool. They're members of the rodent family. It's like a 7-pound kangaroo rat.
Wow.
Yeah. And they only come out at night. Better like on a new moon. The darker the better. And I always think of like what people that first came to the area thought when they went out at night, and there was like aardvarks and these crazy spring hares hopping around all over the place. So there's not like jackrabbit hares during the day because it's such a predator-rich environment. They're all nocturnal. So you can't go out like we do here with your eagle and walk the ground and expect to get a hare slip. So one way that they've adapted is by lamping these spring hares, which, lamping, you can have your own thoughts one way or the other on it, but it does fill the freezer with great eagle food. So here's an example after a successful flight. was definitely on the easy side. And a lot of people choose to enter their short wings this way. Not my cup of tea. Like, it's cold outside at night. I'd rather just like suffer during the day. But it's cool. You get it's very rich meat. It's kind of like squirrel, and Eagle would eat some, and Stephen was quite a chef, and he'd cook it up, and so I did enjoy that part. I mean, and this just looks like a Pokemon. So this was, so I had kind of strange accommodations. So there was an empty house on the farm, an old house, and that they didn't need anymore. They had built themselves, Stephen and his family, a nice new home. So I got to take this old house, and I just put the crowned eagle in one room, and had a nice perch there and some astroturf. And this was my kitchen, so I'd stay in that room, and I'd go wham before I went hunting. All right, so I had this 5-pound crowned eagle, and I wanted to give it slips during the day to help build his confidence, and I didn't know. So what do? Well, so this is kind of the most reliable thing to find during the day. It's a yellow mongoose. They're out and about, they're hunting. So when I first started manning him and he would come to me, immediately I just put him on the lure. And just a furry lure. And I had him for 2 or 3 weeks, every day, chasing that lure. And I got to the point where I would just tie it behind the tailgate of my truck, that little mini Africa truck, and put him on a perch and then gun it. And as soon as he would fly as hard as he could to catch that lure, then I went out and showed him these mongoose. So mongoose can also hear super well, and they'll hear the vibrations of you coming. So it's really hard to walk them up. It's not impossible, but again, it's good to do it off of a vehicle. So after I'd done all the lure work with my bird, and he was about ready to be entered, it happened to coincide with the SAFA meet, which I highly recommend if anybody wants to go to a cool falconer meet in July. It's the first week of July, the South African Falconers Association. And so this guy offered to drive me around. We had some spectators, and we're going to see if we could find some mongoose. And so if you could, this is one flight that we had. If you could push play here. That's Adrian Lombard in the corner there. So I saw mongoose, and I'm tapping this, asking him to slow down, and he went out there and punched in after it. He had a nice little flight, but it was miss.
We wouldn't have known that. You could have said that was a kill.
It's good for next time. And here's another example. Now these fences are a bit of an issue. Here's another flight that we had. This one was on a ground squirrel. Not as fun as the mongoose. Yeah, it's a lot of split-second decision making, and it wasn't. You need to be careful there. Sorry. There we go. But that day we did catch one, and this guy, Dylan Freeman, if you know him, he was like my safari guide. Cause I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know where to find mongoose and what their behaviors were. And we hunted, so it's all week like NAFA, and this was on Friday. Finally caught one. Like just overjoyed. I'd gotten the bird in April, and so in July he finally made his first kill. It was great, and I did a little obligatory group shot there, and it was again like how do you hold a mongoose? But after that we were like off to the races. So we ended up catching 8 mongoose, and then I'd go out and I'd sometimes see, which could be really exciting flights, and I'd see things that looked like mongoose, but I wasn't sure what they were, and they'd run in groups. So like, I saw a group of something running in the distance, and he went after it. He caught it, and I was like, what the heck is that? And it was a meerkat. Sorry I'm taking so much play. I was just so happy he was actually catching things. It was a big group of meerkats. It was just one less. Yeah, like you never know what you'll encounter out there. So this would be like, so we caught a couple meerkat and those mongoose. It was really getting going. And this story is the hazard with meerkats and the guy's revenge. Man, I got a piece of fur lodged up my nose, and I had the worst allergy attack ever. So bad. This happened on a Friday evening, and it like wouldn't stop. It just was sneezing and like tears, and I ended up having to go to I was in this podunk town in the middle of nowhere. That little piece of fur get extracted. Like the nurse had to take it out. So he got the last laugh on that, and I was trying to see his. So he was plucking, and I was down there, trying to be a part of it and make sure he got a lot to eat, and it's just in amid the fur too much. See there, and eventually, my face exploded, and I just grabbed him and the meerkat and got in the car and just drove home, and I never have experienced that with jackrabbits. I didn't know that was possible. So this was interesting. He caught a mongoose here and was looking up because it's a troop of vervet monkeys that happened to be in the area. And when they saw him on the ground, they started to get pretty aggressive. So I had to run in there and be like a buffer. I had him for a little while on a friend's avocado farm, and I'd weather him out there, and no joke, the vervets would literally throw avocados at him.
Your bird's all green there.
This is Jeff. It's just a super typical scene of ostrich there, and the mongoose the edge habitat, and
and a horse.
And a horse, yeah. There's some Frisian horses, very typical, right, in Africa. But it was a particularly big mongoose, and I asked Jeff to run in there and secure it. Not really necessary, but I like the photo. So it's very hot. I mean, even in the middle of winter, they get less than 200 millimeters of rain in this area, and midday it's 85, but it gets cold at night, of course, like here. But of course, the crowned eagles are super tolerant. Sometimes the best shade is just your big ass bird that you have to lug around. So I never caught a monkey with Dart. I named him Dart for the anthropologist Raymond Dart that discovered the Tom Child skull. And he flew rather like a dart, you just kind of had to aim him and hope for the best. But this was the aftermath of a really cool monkey flight that we had, where it was this is just a single stand of trees, a really short line, and I saw them all meld into the trees. So I stopped the car and I put him in the trees, and I thought I'd see, well, maybe he'll ladder up and figure it out. And he actually did. He went to the top of the trees, and then I thought, okay, if I can walk around at the bottom and bang and stuff and see if something might happen. And nothing happened, and I was I didn't quite understand. So I walked 100 yards away and sat against my truck and kind of thought about what to do. And then all of a sudden, the troop just decided to bail. They all hit the ground and started running. So he, like a red tail on a squirrel, just came barreling out of the tree after it. And he got this monkey squeezed through this game fence here. And he got his foot on one through the fence. But, it's just it just didn't happen. Lost a little feather here, and he had a little bit of a sear just from that fence. Fences are the scourge of falconry in general. This healed up fine, but I'm a little concerned in the moment. Okay, so some more crazy things that happened. So I thought, I just want to walk across the desert with him and see what happens, what's out there, what he would do. Maybe I could find that elusive daytime hare. I was really missing jackrabbits. And we ended up flushing. So this here on the left is called an aardwolf. And it's species of the hyena family that's highly specialized to eat termites. So it's got weak jaws, but it's still big. It's like coyote size. And this here is a bat-eared fox, which, man, you see where it gets the name. So he would either follow me from perch to perch, or I'd have him on the fist, and he caught a bat-eared fox. I didn't even know what it was. This thing was hauling. I could just see like the grass kind of moving out there, and not only did he catch it, but he subdued it, and it was dead when I got there. Like, I was shocked at how efficient a 5-pound bird was. I mean, the strength in their feet is just unreal. And it happened again. So this was over several months while I was hunting there. And then the craziest thing was this aardwolf. And again, hundreds of yards out across the open desert and gone. The animal was dead when I got there. I mean, he looks real tiny compared to it. I mean, I've never worked with a bird that was so confident and seemed to relish a fight like a crowned eagle. It's really incredible how predacious they are. So nothing went to waste of this. We used the meat, and but this is an aardwolf here. I mean, a beautiful creature, and I had never even heard. The first time I ever heard of the animal was like when he caught one. Like, what the hell is this thing? Like, what's happening? But yeah, I mean, one thing that ended up captivating me over there was that you could literally have no idea what you're going to see. One time I saw a Cape cobra, which is this bright yellow snake, and it was bearing us no mind, just going on its own business, but a flippin' cobra. So this is, Stephen also flew long wings, and this is peregrine, and he pitched a pigeon for it. But this is the kind of landscape that we're talking. You can see all the termite mounds, and there's a pivot there, and this is a springbok, which is the kind of ubiquitous pronghorn-like animal that they have there. The rugby team is the springboks. So another crazy predation was, so this is Stephen's eagle. She caught a young springbok. You can see, like, it was still a really good size. I mean, I feel like we really only scratched the surface of what, I mean, it's Stephen who would rather fly long wings and is just doing this in his spare time, and me for a couple months doing the best I could, saw predation events like this. I can only imagine what a really fit, really confident bird in the right habitat could do. So I also thought there's a lot of guinea fowl there. I thought, so crowned eagles have really good acceleration, of course. Their specialty is within the first 100 yards, and they go fast off your fist. Fast enough that, we were speculating that they could catch a guinea fowl on the rise. Now, once you flush the initial flock, they'll bed down in singles of 1 or 2, and then you can get a point with your dog and get a nice single flush near your feet. That would be the way to go. So we never got to explore that too much. We played with a drone, so I flew dart on this drone. So you can go ahead and push play here. This particular flight wasn't great. It was the one I was filming. He ended up progressing to the point where he would fly up and take the lure from the drone. So he kind of gives up there, but then comes back up. But I think there's some unexplored potential in what you could do with a crowned eagle's acceleration, for sure. And a lot of their diet in Durban is this Hadi-da ibis. It is feather. So what did we do in our spare time? What did I do? This is at the one-stop grocery store. I lived in a town of like 2,000 people that had like nothing there. It's really like not so different from nowhere America, just with more interesting animals. So right when they don't want any hawking, what do? So this was, we wanted to learn more about the vervet monkeys, and they had this old walk-in trap laying around. I thought, okay, well, how do you entice a monkey? So we found, this is no word of a lie, bananas and like shiny trash, like there's a Red Bull can. It was like.
So they don't drink the Red Bull.
They don't drink, we found, so if you don't like, they're like raccoons, if you don't like protect the garbage that you put outside, they'll just tear it all apart. So one day, came back home to find the garbage everywhere, and the Red Bull cans had like teeth marks all in them. So I guess they're not drinking them, but there's some residual something. Yeah, and they would go in there, and we'd either relocate them or just let them go again. I'll tell you a crazy story. One time, I was sleeping during the middle of the day, and I heard some like ruckus in the house. I just didn't think that much of it. I was really tired, and so I just went back to sleep. And I came out later, and what happened was my door was ajar, and some vervets got in, and they ate all the fruit in my kitchen and pooped on my dining room table. And like a little revenge there. The other cool thing I like is that you could be out hawking and just see an ostrich egg, and they keep super well, like 3 or 4 weeks they can be out there, and they're still fine and edible. And one thing I really liked with Stephen, his farm, this is his fridge when I first got there, and it's like all wine bottles and some ostrich eggs. Yeah, and it's hard this was in my kitchen. So like the preferred way to deal with an ostrich egg is to drill a hole in the top, and then you just meter out a little bit of it every time you want to have breakfast. So you can reuse it and you just put your egg back in there. There's no nice drill for me to use. So I've got all these random utensils in the kitchen, and okay, how can I break into this thing but not get it everywhere? And there's a lot of time just trying to figure out how am I supposed to eat this thing. Yeah. Another thing that was really neat about this farm is that, and it's across the country, and you'll come across these old petroglyphs, and this is clearly a rhinoceros. You wonder what human sat there and admired a rhinoceros and depicted it on this rock that I get to see however many hundreds or even thousands of years later. There's a real sense of continuity of history that I enjoyed. And just a really nice scene here. Just dart on a mongoose and just enjoy the African desert. So I actually got to see the real Tom Child, which was really cool and nice. They brought it out for me. This is the curator of the Institute of Human Origins at the University of Johannesburg. And so this is the actual skull. So I wanted to do a little miniature experiment where from a monkey that Stephen's eagle had caught, I wondered if I gave the head to my eagle just during the molt, if what it would come out looking like. And it's a little gross. But 3 pieces, right? I mean, it looked very similar. Totally unscientific, but I don't know. So it's just how we connect with, a new way to connect with eagles. So this was all Africa. I'm just going to talk a tiny bit about America. So thanks to very forward-thinking and hardworking people like Dave Canellis and Chase Dellis, we have some African species here in America. And the goal is to build sustainable captive breeding populations that we as falconers can enjoy, and just so there's healthy population outside the wild in case anything, of course, were to happen. And that leads to some pretty incredible opportunities. So through Dave's generosity, I've been flying a 3-year-old female that he had imported and trying her on jackrabbits, which, so I got her at the end of October, and she's she is on the cusp of catching her first jackrabbit. It's been very cool to see with that burst. It's like, I mean, many people would have said this already, and they are correct. It's like flying a gigantic goshawk. Crazy speed off the fist. I mean, she'll match the turns until she gets a little petered out. But it's really a cool way to showcase their speed and maneuverability. And I think after you build the right relationship with one and get it fit and confident, there would be, especially a male, a nice little 5-pound male, be a second to none jackrabbit hawk. They prefer the closer slips, but it's like magic in the heart-stopping 5 seconds that they're matching that jackrabbit turn for turn in a way that no golden eagle can. So yes, we have potentially really exciting opportunities for falconers in the future to enjoy these birds. And yeah, so that's it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah.
So do they let you take a normal hawk or a normal eagle just trapping it, or you have to get the rehab ones from South Africa?
From South Africa, there's so many rehab birds and so few people willing or able that's pretty much, and South Africa's done a great job in that falconry and rehab are totally intertwined. They go hand in hand. So it's a very positive thing with the public, and but enough of them come in that you can choose one that would be a pretty good falconry candidate.